Good morning, dear students. Welcome to the home mentoring section of the accountancy. Myself, CSK Khanna from the SP Vidya School, Ambala, Kent. Dear students, till today we had learned the basic aspects relating to our subject, and we had covered different lessons starting with the definition of accounting and various aspects relating to the accounting. We had learned the theory base of accounting. There we had learned to the basic principles, concepts, convention, postulates. We had also learned what the accounting standards are there and which way they have the applications to the national and the international level. We had also learned the numerical aspect relating to the framing of the accounting equation. We had also learned what the double entry system is, what are the different type of the accounts is, and what the rules of debit and credit is. We had also learned what a source document is and what are the various examples of source documents is. Now from today onwards, we are going to start our next lesson that is associated with the journal, and in the common word you come across that relating to the journal entry or journalizing. It is the first step under the process of books of original entry. As we all know that the first step is relating to the recording of the financial transactions in the books of account. So it is the first step which is known as the journalizing or recording of the entries in the journal, or the very simple words we say that we are recording the journal entries and it is a part of the books of original entry. How we would journalize, what are the rules to be followed. Prior to that, it is essential that we understand some theoretical aspect relating to this very simple and very important lesson, because journal entry, they are the basis of the whole accounting process, because rest all other accounting calculations and steps, they've been derived and taken from the very basic step that is known as the journal. So first of all, we must know obviously what a journal is. Journal is a book of prime entry. Prime entry means the book of original entry or book of original entry in which transactions are first recorded in a chronological order or sequence they are entered. Journal is called the book of original entry since all transactions are initially recorded in it. As earlier I also shared with you, journal is the first step in the books of original entry. So all the transactions, obviously they are of the financial nature, are recorded in a sequence wise or in a systematic order in this book. So it is known as the book of original entry or book of prime entry. Under this, what we should do, we should first of all record the transactions and rest all other steps to be followed afterwards. Why the journal called a book of original entry? Very simple and very easy question, easy answer. All the transactions are recorded firstly in the journal. As I told you repeatedly, that all the transactions, first of all, they've been recorded in the journal, and later on, all the steps to be followed on the basis of the transactions which are recorded in the journal. Then another question arises, give advantage of journal. Recording of accounting data in systematic order. Chronological order means in proper sequence, in a particular order, is the advantage of the journal. So journal has a very good advantage that all the financial transactions, they are systematically, they are recorded sequence wise, that is step by step, that the first transaction will be recorded first and afterwards they all been recorded in this book. So it had the advantage that it record all the transactions in a systematic pattern. Give one limitation of journal. What is the limitation? It is impossible to record all the heavy and bulky transactions are the only limitation of journal. Basically, journal has no limitation because all the transactions should be recorded in this, but sometimes it becomes difficult to record heavy and bulky transactions, means large number or huge number of transactions should not be recorded. So we record the 2-3 different books named same as journal. So We could say that this is a limitation, but actually there is no limitation of journal. Next question, what is a narrative? You come across the word narrative means narration. Narration here means the explanations. Answer is, all the transaction has a brief description after each entry is known as the narrative or narration. Means once you record the journal entry in the journal, afterwards you give some brief detail, brief description that the above entry is relating to this particular transaction. So that detail which is given in brief is known as the narrative or the narration. After the recording of the transaction in the books of account, we record and make the journal entry, and afterwards we give a very brief detail, brief description about that entry, that is known as the narrative or the narration. What is ledger folio or LF? Ledger folio or LF is the abbreviation which is used for ledger folio. Ledger folio or LF is the page number where the journal is made. The page number is recorded in the journal. After the journal, the transactions being posted into the ledger. So ledger folio means the page number where that journal entry being posted into the ledger. LM means the page number where the journal entry being posted into the ledger. Other important term is compound journal entry or complex journal entry. Compound journal entry or complex journal entry means when two or more transactions related to one particular account take place on the same date. In this situation, instead of recording separate entries, only one entry is passed. This type of the entry is known as the compound or journal entry. Very simply, one can understand, when two or more transactions related to one particular account takes place on the same date, when one account is common, in this situation, instead of recording the separate transactions, separate entries, only one entry is passed, and that entry is known as the compound journal entry. For example, on 5th June, salaries paid and rent paid rupees 10,000 and 5,000 respectively. Now both the transactions, they are relating to the payment through the cash, and they had been done on the same day. We could have the two separate entries, salaries account debit to cash account, rent account debit to cash account. As you come across that in the credit side, the account is common, that is cash account. In the debit side, salary account is there in first transaction. In the debit side, the rent account is in the second transaction. But in the credit side of both the transaction, cash account is credited. So instead of recording the two separate entries, we record one common entry, that is known as the salary account debit, rent account debit to cash account, that is known as the compound journal entries. What is opening entry? Basically, the first entry in the journal is passed to record closing balances of the previous year. It is called the opening entry. The balance sheet prepared at the end of the year shows the closing balances of each asset and liabilities and forms the basis for this opening entry. Whenever the year is closed, some of the accounts, they are having their balances. They are known as the closing balances at the end of the year. Now those balances to be brought forward to the next year and the opening balance. So the entry which is recorded to bring out the closing balances of the previous year as becomes the opening balances known as the opening entry. Again, in order to brought forward the closing balances of the previous year as opening balances of the next year, the entry which is recorded, that is known as the opening entry, and it contains the balances of assets and liabilities on the basis of the information given in the closing balance sheet of the last year. So this way we had understood the basic sum of the aspects relating to the journal entry. We had learned what is a journal. It is a book of the original entry or the prime entry. What the advantages of journal is, What the limitation? Practically there is no limitation. Narration or the narrative, the brief explanation about the entry. Ledger folio is the page number. Compound journal entry, the entry which is recorded where one common account is there. And opening entry, the entry which is recorded at the beginning of the year to brought forward to the previous year closing balances of assets and liability. So that is known as the opening entry. I would continue in my next video relating to the other aspects of journal or journal entries.